I think one of the really interesting things with something like LinkedIn, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that all these types of platforms present one directional information. And often we're encouraged to keep it simple. What are the top 3 takeaways? What's the one thing you've got to do? All that type of stuff. It's a bit of a self-reinforcing ecosystem of information. And so for people on the receiving end, for the audiences, sometimes we can be almost not trained, but like that reinforces us, like, oh, maybe we need to just offer that one single thing, right? And so we then demand that as an audience member too. So sometimes like I have conversations with people where when I want to present a longer form complex concept to someone, and I say, here's a really interesting article that might go into the different nuances, the responses are there's too much, I can't be bothered reading it.
Yeah.
But therein lies actually the problem, is that we're not asking, or not, I mean the royal we, not necessarily openly engaging in some of those more complex conversations because, as you said, they can be really uncomfortable. I stuck my head out, my neck out the other day on Facebook talking about COVID. And it was within a fairly safe space. So I knew the people who were involved in the conversation, but it struck me how easy it was for people to kind of talk about COVID, and especially in Melbourne, this idea of it's either open up or it's locked down. It was a very binary one or the other. And there wasn't a deeper engagement around what are all the other components in it? You know, because so many overlapping systems of issues that, yes, takes effort and takes time and takes deep levels of discomfort to engage with, but we can't shy away from that, because otherwise that contributes all the way back to something I mentioned at the start, a bit of that polarization. I only want to talk to people who agree with my worldview. I don't want to live, that kind of a thing.
Look, I'd say a couple of things in response to that. The first thing that I'd say is I actually posted something on Facebook yesterday, which started off with the line, if there was one webinar or one or one podcast that you listen to, make sure it's this one. It was actually a great podcast by this psychologist called Rob Gordon, and he talked about how we each deal with disasters and how we recover from disasters. But I won't talk about that now. So, look, I think if I can offer a response to that, I think we have to respect that each individual is able to digest, absorb, grapple with a set number of perspectives and in turn a set levels of complexity, right? And I think it also depends on your life circumstance. So if I look at my life right now, I'm sitting in my study. I've got food, I've got money in the bank. I still know where I'm going to go, what I'm going to be doing tomorrow to an extent, and I'm pretty safe. But not everyone's in that same context, And so I totally agree with you. It's frustrating when we get certain biased opinions about how we think the world should be. At the same time, I think we would be subscribing to the antithesis of the whole complexity movement, and in turn, the diversity that we need, if we let ourselves get too frustrated. It's like what my friend says to me, you're allowed 30 minutes of whinging a day and the rest is constructive, right? And so I think maybe in COVID times, we give ourselves an hour and then the rest we go, okay, so how can we constructively engage in the world?